The Las Vegas Raiders have taken a big step to strengthen their defensive line, addressing a key area of need. Today, we'll break down what this move means for the team moving forward. The Raiders were in a position where they needed more depth on the defensive line, not just top-end talent, but solid contributors throughout the rotation. They answered that need by selecting defensive tackle Tonka Hemingway from South Carolina. Hemingway is a fascinating prospect. After reviewing his film, including his performance at the Shrine Bowl, it's clear he brings unique skills to the table. Most defensive tackles rarely use spin moves because of their size and build, but Hemingway has shown he can pull it off effectively, something that immediately makes him stand out. Adding players with upside was crucial for the Raiders, especially considering the stage of the draft they were in. First and second round picks are expected to start right away. Third rounders are usually quick contributors. By the fourth round, teams are drafting players based on traits and potential. After selecting a big, explosive wide receiver from Tennessee earlier in the fourth round, the Raiders turned their attention to Hemingway, a player who brings real pass rush upside. His tape shows flashes of high-level ability, even if it's uncertain how soon he'll contribute or if he'll reach the level of a veteran like Adam Butler. Developing defensive tackles can be challenging, but Hemingway shows real promise. One of his standout traits is his hesitation move, or hezi, a quick, deceptive first step that can trick offensive linemen into overcommitting. Whether faking inside or spinning outside, Hemingway uses his initial movement to create space, much like a wide receiver setting up a route before cutting. Good pass rushers master these types of setups, and Hemingway already shows strong instincts in this area. His athletic testing numbers back it up too. He ranked first among all defensive tackles at the NFL Combine in athleticism score. While Hemingway's college production doesn't jump off the page, and he's not a can't-miss prospect like Jalen Carter, the Raiders are betting on his raw tools and potential to develop into a real difference-maker down the line. Tonka Hemingway isn't the type of player who disrupts a game every few snaps like a dominant force such as Jalen Carter. Instead, his impact shows up once every dozen plays or so. That doesn't mean he's ineffective. He consistently does his job, whether it's holding his ground in the A-gap against the run or maintaining outside containment during defensive line stunts. Built more like a pass rusher than a traditional run stopper, Hemingway fits the mold of players like Adam Butler and Christian Wilkins, rather than big-bodied run defenders like Jonathan Hankins or Deone Walker. This is important because the Raiders' defensive line leans heavily toward pass rushing strength, while the run defense remains more of a question mark. Adam Butler and Christian Wilkins bring pass rush ability, but neither is considered an elite run defender. Wilkins is a solid all-around player, but even his best work comes when he's lined up outside in a 3 technique or 4 technique, where he can avoid constant double teams and maximize his disruption. Butler, on the other hand, struggles to anchor against double teams and is mostly used as a pass rush specialist. The Raiders do have a few players on the roster who could help against the run, like Jonah Laulu, recently signed from the Colts, and Leki Fotu, who previously played with the Jets. Zach Carter, picked up last season, also profiles more as a run defender. However, there was hope the Raiders would land a top-tier run stopper in this draft class. There was real interest in players like Alfred Collins and Deone Walker. Collins ended up going much earlier than expected, well out of reach for the Raiders. Deone Walker was still available during the 4th round, but instead, the Raiders selected wide receiver Dante Thornton Jr. The very next pick, the Buffalo Bills scooped up Walker, and given Buffalo's strong draft history, it suggests Walker could turn into a very good player. Even though the Raiders missed out on a premier run defender, the draft isn't over yet. There's still an opportunity to address that need later on. For now, they've added Hemingway, a player with clear pass rush potential and a foundation to develop from. Hemingway's college production wasn't eye-popping. Over his final season, he logged 507 snaps, with 269 of those as pass rush reps, recording 5 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. Those numbers aren't bad given the number of opportunities, but it's important to remember he was a 5th-year player. He also played alongside a stacked defensive line that included future stars like Dylan Stewart, a projected #1 overall pick in a few years, and Kyle Kennard, another strong NFL prospect. In that environment, Hemingway wasn't the primary focus, but he still carved out his role. He profiles much more as a developmental player than a ready-made starter. While it's uncertain whether Hemingway will grow into a starting-caliber defensive tackle, The traits are definitely there. And in the fourth round, that's exactly what teams are betting on. Tonka Hemingway was the Raiders' final pick in the fourth round. And at that stage, you're aiming for players with traits and upside. Hemingway definitely fits that mold. His potential is impressive, but he's far from a finished product. His floor is low, meaning if he doesn't develop over the next few years, it wouldn't be surprising if he's released. However, defensive tackles often take 4 to 5 years to fully mature. Even if Hemingway doesn't stick with the Raiders long term, he could still catch on elsewhere and carve out a solid NFL career as a rotational player. Watching his film, the flashes of talent are obvious. He has strong pass rush moves, including a solid double hand swipe and a spin move, rare skills for a player at his position. These tools give him a real chance to develop if he's coached well. The Raiders' strategy in this draft shows they feel confident about their defensive line overall. Hemingway, a late fourth-round pick, is their first major investment in the defensive front. Considering the number of talented edge rushers available even into the third round, it says a lot about their faith in players like Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson, and Max Crosby. There's also depth behind the starters. Players like Andre Carter and Charles Snowden could step into larger roles if needed, offering even more options for the rotation. Given that, the Raiders may not feel pressure to chase more defensive linemen in the later rounds, but there are still a few intriguing prospects left if they want to add another piece. Overall, the Raiders' draft approach under General Manager Tom Telesco and Assistant GM John Spytek seems well thought out. They've clearly prioritized improving the roster, especially on offense, while still adding upside players like Hemingway on defense. It'll be exciting to see how Hemingway develops over the next few seasons. He has the physical tools. Now it's about how he's coached and how hard he works.